1612 local time, 45,000 feet above Vaingloo Island, hovering right on the razor's edge of NATO's eastern flank. 3 Russian MiG-31 Foxhounds are screaming through the stratosphere at Mach 1.5, their massive Soloviev engines dumping raw kerosene into the afterburners like they are trying to melt the sky itself. These flying dinosaurs are the muscle escorting the Jaguar, a sanction-busting tanker carrying millions of dollars in black market oil. And inside those titanium cockpits, the Russian pilots are feeling invincible, convinced that pure speed makes them untouchable gods. But stay focused, because right now, that arrogance is a fatal error. If those pilots look down at their outdated SPO-15 warning systems, they would see absolutely nothing, a comforting lie telling them they are the kings of the Baltic. But if they could see the invisible web of data surrounding them, they would realize they are already dead. While Moscow believes this aggressive formation is frightening the West, something silent is sitting comfortably in the void, watching the heat signature of those engines bloom like a supernova. If you think having the biggest engines wins modern wars, then don't blink, because what happens next isn't a battle. It is the humiliating deconstruction of Soviet doctrine by a ghost in the machine. On paper, this formation represents the absolute zenith of Soviet brute force engineering, the kind of heavy metal that keeps Western analysts up at night. The MiG-31 Foxhound isn't just a jet, it is a 20-ton flying tank designed to outrun the apocalypse, powered by twin Soloviev D-30F6 engines that generate a bone-crushing 34,000 pounds of thrust each. Inside that needle nose sits the Zaslon M, a passive electronically scanned array radar weighing as much as a Honda Civic, specifically built to burn through jamming and spot bombers from 200 kilometers away. These Russian pilots are convinced they are flying the ultimate predator, a machine capable of hitting Mach 2.83 faster than a rifle bullet. They are flanking the Jaguar, a massive tanker displacing thousands of tons of water, creating a defensive bubble that feels impenetrable. It is a terrifying display of mechanical muscle, a flying iron curtain designed to intimidate. But here is the catch that the Russian planners missed. In the digital age, being big and loud doesn't make you a predator. It just makes you the easiest target on the server. Let's run the numbers on this flying circus, because the return on investment calculation is about to get brutal. We are looking at 3 Foxhounds, each valuing in at a cool $60 million, representing a sunk cost that Moscow can barely afford to maintain. That invincible Zaslon radar is a $10 million eyesore that they can't replace without smuggled Western chips. And the prize pig in the middle, the Jaguar, is hauling $80 million in illicit crude liquid cash destined to fund more T-90 seconds. Add it all up, and this formation is a floating $250 million asset portfolio, exposed and vulnerable in international airspace. If you were a hedge fund manager, you would be shorting this stock immediately. While the pilots see a show of force, Western targeting computers just see a high-value receipt waiting to be printed. Stay with me, because the market correction for this level of arrogance is coming in fast from the Italian coast. Modern warfare has become a lethal game of hide-and-seek, except the seeker is effectively blindfolded. 2 Italian F-35A Lightning IIs drift silently in ghost mode, their radar cross-section no larger than a steel marble. While the Russian formation blazes across the infrared spectrum with enormous heat signatures, the stealth fighters remain invisible, impossible for the aging Zaslon M radar to detect until it is far too late. Russian pilots scan the horizon for obvious threats, unaware they are already inside a digital fishbowl watched by machines processing data far faster than any human mind. The true divide between 20th century metal and 21st century silicon becomes clear in the Italian strategy. They are not here to shoot, they are here to haunt. One F-35 activates the ANASQ-239 Barracuda electronic warfare suite, a system that doesn't merely jam radar, it manipulates perception itself. Instead of just blinding enemy sensors, Barracuda injects carefully crafted false data into the MiG-31 sensor fusion, fabricating a virtual fleet that exists only as code. Inside the Russian cockpits, a routine patrol transforms into chaos within seconds. Screens that were empty suddenly explode with alerts showing 12 hostile contacts closing in from every direction. The flight leader sees what appears to be a NATO squadron diving from above, locking onto his heat signature. Warning tones shriek as the SPO-15 system floods the cockpit with threat indicators. Pilots shout coordinates over the radio bandits at 3, 9, and 12 o'clock, yet beyond the canopy lies nothing but empty sky. It is psychological warfare at its most refined, forcing the enemy to fight ghosts while burning precious fuel, reacting to equations rather than aircraft. Commanders face an impossible decision: trust their own eyes or trust sensors worth millions. The F-35 seconds have turned advanced technology into a generator of paranoia, feeding hallucinations that provoke high-G evasive maneuvers against missiles that were never fired. Meanwhile, the real predators remain undetected above, quietly recording every frantic frequency shift. This is no longer a traditional battle. It is a controlled experiment in dominance, where electrons replace bullets and confusion becomes the weapon. By the time the Russians realize they have been maneuvering against shadows, the engagement has already been decided. In the cockpit of Red Leader, adrenaline has completely replaced logic. Trained in rigid Cold War doctrine, the Russian flight lead doesn't pause to analyze why NATO jets would appear out of thin air. He reacts with predictable aggression. He flips the master arm switch on his R-37M Vimple missiles, weapons costing the Russian taxpayer a staggering $2 million apiece, and achieves a hard lock on the brightest ghost signature. "Fox 3, he screams, firing a long-range interceptor into the empty Baltic sky. The heavy weapon tears away, chasing a complex mathematical equation at Mach 6. But stay with me, because this is where the comedy of errors begins. As the missile depletes its energy chasing a phantom signal generated by the F-35, the Russian pilot is already celebrating. He sees the red blip vanish from his screen and assumes a confirmed kill. Target destroyed. Western trash neutralized. He boasts over unencrypted channels, his voice filled with unearned bravado. He genuinely believes he became an ace. But here is the twist that makes this mission a masterclass in humiliation. He didn't destroy anything. The F-35 simply stopped transmitting the spoofing signal, letting the missile wander aimlessly until it fell into the freezing ocean like a very expensive lawn dart. The Russians are now high-fiving over a victory that exists only in their heads. They are burning tons of fuel, wasting critical inventory, and exposing their exact engagement frequencies to the silent listeners above. It is a scene of tragic arrogance. They are fighting a frantic war against their own instruments. Meanwhile, the F-35 pilots watch this air show like scientists observing bacteria. The Russians think they are hunters, but in reality, they are just entertainment. They are emptying magazines at shadows, draining the Kremlin's wallet $1 million mistake at a time, unaware the real trap hasn't even sprung. This is what happens when you bring a sledgehammer to a hacking contest. You just smash your own toes while the audience laughs. But the celebration inside the Russian cockpits is cut short by a cold, hard dose of reality. Just as their heart rates begin to settle, a new warning tone screams through their headsets, not the ghostly flicker of the F-35 seconds this time, but the hard, undeniable lock of a hunter that wants to be seen. Stay focused, because the nightmare shifts from psychological torture to physical entrapment. From the low southern cloud deck, two Swedish JAS-39 Gripens power up their Raven ES-05 AESA radars. These aren't silent assassins. These are the street wolves of the Baltic, here to herd the cattle. Unlike the stealth fighters, the Swedes intentionally blast the Russians with radar energy, lighting them up like criminals in a police spotlight. The Russian pilots, low on fuel and depleted of missiles, panic. They instinctively reach for their L-203 Gardenia jamming pods, desperate to blind this threat. But here is the catch. Trying to jam a modern AESA radar with Soviet-era analog pods is like trying to stop a tsunami with a paper shield. The Gripen's radar hops frequencies 1,000 times per second, rendering the Russian jammers useless. The MiG-31 seconds are now naked, blind, and screaming for help. Just when they turn south to engage, the final trap snaps shut. From the west, lurking in the sun's glare, the Polish F-16 Vipers reveal themselves. This is the classic hammer and anvil maneuver executed via Link 16 data sharing. the Russians are sandwiched. To their south, the Gripens are armed with the Meteor missile, a weapon powered by a ramjet engine, giving it the largest no-escape zone in the world. If a Meteor is fired, you can't run or hide, you just die tired. To their west, the Polish Vipers have towed with AIM-120D AMRAAMs, the mad dogs that find their own way to the target. The Russian formation has nowhere to go. They are boxed in by geometry and outclassed by physics. The tanker Jaguar, the prize they were supposed to protect, is now floating helplessly in a NATO firing squad. The Russian pilots look at their fuel gauges blinking red, their empty missile rails, and the radar warning receiver lit up like a Christmas tree. They realize they haven't just lost, they have been played. The invincible Foxhounds are now heavy, defenseless targets drifting in the crosshairs of superior technology. If you are a fan of checkmates, take a screenshot, because this is what total air dominance looks like. Let's freeze this frame for a second to understand the terrifying engineering currently pointing at the Russian cockpits. This is where the concept of no escape zone transitions from a military buzzword into a cold, hard physics equation. The Meteor missile hanging off the Gripen's wing isn't a standard rocket. It is an air-breathing ramjet. Unlike Russian missiles that burn all their propellant in a few seconds and then coast, losing energy like a thrown baseball, the Meteor throttles its engine. It actively manages its fuel to maintain Mach 4 velocity all the way to the impact point. This means if the Russian pilot tries to run, the missile doesn't just chase him. It runs him down with sustained kinetic energy that no amount of maneuvering can defeat. Imagine the terminal phase if the trigger is pulled. The Meteor's radar fuse detects the massive cross-section of the MiG-31. Milliseconds before impact, the high-explosive blast fragmentation warhead detonates. This isn't just a fireball, it creates an expanding annulus of preformed tungsten cubes moving at hypersonic speeds. Physics takes over. The MiG-31 is essentially a flying fuel tank made of titanium and steel. When that ring of tungsten shreds through the airframe, it doesn't just poke holes, it induces catastrophic structural disassembly. The kinetic transfer shreds hydraulic lines instantly, turning the aircraft's control surfaces into floppy, useless metal. Simultaneously, the superheated fragments ignite the thousands of pounds of kerosene stored in the fuselage tanks. The result is a thermal event so violent it registers on weather satellites. Inside the cockpit, the pilot wouldn't even have time to register the flash. One moment he is flying a 40-ton interceptor. The next, he is part of a rapidly expanding cloud of debris and ionized gas. This is the thermal truth staring them in the face. The Russian pilots know this math. They know that against a ramjet afterburner is just a fancy word for dying faster. They are sitting on top of two giant engines that are essentially heat beacons, waiting for a missile that simply does not know how to miss. The Russian flight leader, accepting the bitter reality, keys his mic and delivers the most painful order in military language: return to base. But this is no orderly retreat. It feels more like a public humiliation. Escorted closely by Polish F-16 seconds documenting every moment, the once feared MiG-31 seconds turned back toward Russian airspace with cold afterburners and dark radar screens. Meanwhile, the tanker Jaguar, the mission's floating wallet, is left exposed and drifting alone, a vulnerable asset now squarely under NATO observation. The financial angle reveals the deeper defeat. Russia burned hundreds of thousands in fuel, scrambling heavy interceptors for a mission that achieved nothing. A multi-million-dollar missile was reportedly fired at what turned out to be a false target, while valuable engine life was consumed on aircraft already strained by sanctions. The return on that investment? No confirmed successes, no deterrence, only a costly operational setback. By contrast, NATO's expenditure was minimal. The patrol functioned largely as a routine operation, and the tools that shifted the balance weren't expensive weapons, but information signals, software, and coordination. In modern conflict, relatively low-cost electronic measures can disrupt far more expensive hardware, creating an asymmetric advantage without a single-shot landing. The takeaway is stark. Contemporary warfare increasingly favors intelligence, networks, and processing power over sheer mass and speed. Advanced electronics can reshape the battlefield before traditional weapons even come into play. Whether commanders choose to stand their ground or disengage quickly in such moments often becomes a calculation of risk versus resources, one that modern militaries must weigh carefully as technology continues to redefine what dominance looks like in the air.